prisoner exchange with Russia since the war began. We'll speak to the sister of one of the freed men. For a sixth day, Iranians are out in the streets protesting against the death of a young woman in police custody. Her father's told the BBC the authorities aren't coming clean about what happened to his daughter.
I asked them why you didn't transfer her to the hospital earlier when she collapsed at the police station. And they said the ambulance's key was lost for 20 minutes and they couldn't find it. Can you believe this? I still cannot believe she's dead.
And scientists say they found a promising new treatment for some people with motor neurone disease. All of that and more coming up after the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. A federal appeals court panel has ruled the Justice Department can resume its investigation of classified materials the FBI seized from former President Donald Trump's Florida property. NPR's Marie Andrusovich has more.
The unanimous ruling blocks an earlier decision delaying the DOJ's examination of the documents until they were reviewed by an independent arbiter known as a special master. In a 29-page decision, the court said Trump failed to prove claims that he had a personal interest in the documents or that as president he had declassified them. Finally, the judges note that the public has a strong interest in knowing whether the storage of the classified records resulted in, quote, exceptionally grave damage to the national security. That, the court says, requires reviewing the documents to determine if any information was compromised. Marie Andrusovich, NPR News, Washington.
The House committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol has reached an agreement with the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas to be interviewed. Lawmakers want to ask Ginny Thomas about her communications with a lawyer. That lawyer was part of an effort to get then Vice President Mike Pence to reject the 2020 presidential election results during Congress's count of Electoral College votes. The House has passed legislation that makes changes to how presidential elections in the U.S. are certified. The bill stems from the January 6th attack at the Capitol. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports it now heads to the Senate.
The passage of the House bill sets up a showdown with the Senate, where a group of bipartisan lawmakers is marking up similar legislation to amend the Electoral Count Act. The House measure would significantly raise the threshold needed for lawmakers to object to state electors by requiring the support of 1/3 of each chamber. The Senate bill would set the threshold at 1/5 of each chamber. Both are notably higher than the current law, which only requires one House or Senate member to raise an objection. The Senate bill has the support of 10 Republicans, enough to override a filibuster if all 50 Democrats in the chamber vote yes. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
North Korea is denying reports that it exported weapons to Russia. NPR's Anthony Kuhn says that a declassified U.S. intelligence report claimed this month that Russia is purchasing artillery shells and rockets from Pyongyang.
State media quoted an anonymous defense official as saying North Korea has not exported any arms to Russia and will not plan to in future. It blamed the U.S. for circulating politically motivated rumors. UN sanctions forbid North Korea from importing or exporting arms. Pyongyang says that's its sovereign right. It has voiced its support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
NPR's Anthony Kuhn reporting from Seoul. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning, it's 9:04. I'm Jennifer Lynn. You're listening to WHYY in Philadelphia. In the news, in response to an anti-abortion rally held in Harrisburg this week at the state capitol, the Wolf administration is pointing out the types of reproductive health care Pennsylvanians can access, which includes abortion in some cases. For WHYY, Sam Dunklall reports.
For the first time since the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, several thousand gathered at the State House to rally for more abortion restrictions. Right now, Pennsylvanians can have that procedure at up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. After that, it's allowed only in cases of rape, incest, or to protect a mother's life. State Medicaid funds can help pay for those abortions. Women can also get low-cost or free birth control and even see a provider through the Department of Human Services, says agency special advisor
council is doing the people's business, and the people want to see their elected representatives. That said, only a few members of the public will be allowed into the chambers because of continued concerns over the coronavirus. You're listening to WHYY. It's 9:05.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Insperity, providing HR services for 30-plus years, including access to employee benefits and payroll. Insperity's mission is to help businesses succeed so communities prosper. Insperity, HR that makes a difference.
Hello and welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. We're coming to you live from London. I'm James Menendez. And later in the programme we'll be hearing about unusually large protests in Iran and in Russia. And after 16 years and only 3 convictions, the UN-backed tribunal in Cambodia has held its final hearing on the atrocities carried out by the Khmer Rouge in the late 1970s. We'll ask one of the survivors if the cost and time involved was worth it.
It's the turning point for Cambodia. We have fulfilled our responsibility, not just of the country, but as a survivor, and also for the international community, that today it's a reminder that such a crime that we have failed to prosecute, that we should not fail again to bring about a process to prevent such atrocity to reoccur in the future.
That's coming up in just over 40 minutes' time. But we are going to begin today with Ukraine and news of a prisoner exchange with Russia, the largest since the war began back in February. More than 200 Ukrainian captives have been released in exchange for 55 Russians, and notably a prominent pro-Russian Ukrainian politician and oligarch, Viktor Medvedchuk, who's a close ally of President Putin and was facing charges of treason. Among the Ukrainians who've been released are members of the Azov Battalion. They were the troops who spent several weeks defending the steelworks in the port city of Mariupol, besieged by Russian forces. President Zelensky spoke via video link to some of the Azov's commanders who've been taken to Turkey.
Good day to you guys. Good to see you. Congratulations on your return. Our guys are heroes. It's good to see everyone. It's nice after all the time we've been on the phone. We're proud of what you've done for our nation, proud of each and every one of you. You're safe in Turkey. The second step is, of course, you will definitely be coming home. And in Russia, a spokesman for the Defense Ministry, Igor Konashenkov, said the agreement to exchange the prisoners was reached after some tough negotiations.
As a result of the hard negotiating process regarding an exchange, 55 servicemen of the Russian armed forces and the forces of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics, who were facing mortal danger in captivity, were brought to Russia from the Kiev regime-controlled territory overnight. All the servicemen have been transported by military plane to Russia, and they are currently at Russian Defense Ministry medical facilities. All released servicemen have had the opportunity to get in touch with their relatives over the phone. They are being provided with the necessary mental and medical treatment.
Well, Sandra Krotevich is the sister of Bogdan Krotevich, who's now the commander of the Azov Brigade. He's just been released as part of this exchange. Through a translator, she told me about the moment when she saw him.
I only saw him for a moment because before we're allowed to see them properly, then he has to go through a whole medical examination and a procedure to check his health after he's been imprisoned for all these months.
But how did he seem in that brief moment?
I recognized him, that he's definitely my brother, but I didn't know that he was going to have long hair and a beard, and yeah, I thought he was just going to be an ordinary soldier, but he's now, he's gone up in his rank, so he's a commander. I didn't expect to see him as a commander.
And where is he at the moment? My understanding was that the prisoners were in Turkey and would have to stay in Turkey.
No, my brother is in Ukraine. He's in a hospital. He's being under examination. Some of the others are still in Turkey. Some of the other members of the regiment.
And so when will he be able to go home? What, in just a few days?
So I don't know, because it all depends on the results of the tests that he's going through. And at the moment he's in this hospital and he has to stay there.
Sandra, do you expect Bogdan to rejoin the fight against Russia at some point in the future?
I don't know because I haven't actually had the opportunity to speak to him, but I'm sure that he will be waiting for orders from his senior commanders, and maybe in the future he will go back, but at the moment I really don't know, and we just have to wait until we can speak to him yourselves.
Of course, and I understand it's great for you and your family that he has come back, but in general, do you think these prisoner exchanges with Russia, whereby they get some of their prisoners in return for Ukrainian soldiers returning, do you think that is a good idea? It's a price worth paying?
I do support exchanges, and my group of us who've been campaigning for the release of all the Azovstal prisoners, we won't abandon any of the Azovstal regiment, and those in Turkey, we're waiting for them to come home as well.
And how difficult has it been not knowing how your brother is? Did you even know that he was still alive?
I didn't know anything about him for more than 4 months. I couldn't get any information from the International Red Cross or any other organisation, and I hadn't actually seen or heard from him since the 20th of May. I didn't even know that he was on the list of prisoners to be exchanged. I went to meet the other fighters not knowing that he might be released.
Is your brother a hero, a Ukrainian hero?
I think that all of them in Azovstal who went through those 86 days of hell in Azovstal are heroes, and I think everybody who was in Mariupol is also heroic.
And it was a terrible ordeal, but Sandra, I must ask you this. Many people regard the Azov as a neo-Nazi regiment, especially the Russians. Is your brother a neo-Nazi?
That's just Russian propaganda. The only Nazis are the Russian soldiers who've been torturing and abusing peaceful citizens in Ukraine, and cutting off their ears and other atrocities. We never did anything like that. We are defending our own country, we're defending our own home and our own people.
But some people point to the insignia that the group wears, neo-Nazi insignia, and they also say that it gave the Russians an excuse to invade. That Russia said, look, here is the Azov Brigade, they are Nazis, and that's why we need to start this war.
The only Nazis are those who came with the Zs on their uniforms and to kill Ukrainians. The people who are spreading these lies and propaganda have no idea about anything to do with history or the truth. The letters INN, which we wear on a uniform, it represent the idea of a nation, and those who are saying it's something otherwise are just being paid by the Russians to spread lies. Russia is the only Nazi fascist place in this war.
And Sandra, just one final question, if I may. What do you think you're going to say to your brother when you finally see him and can sit down and have a proper conversation with him?
Well, I'll just tell him that I love him and that I've waited for him, and all our family have been waiting for him. And my brother will be struggling and fighting to release all the prisoners who are still detained and who are living through the hell that he's been through. And that's what he's doing at the moment. He's trying to get everyone released.
That was Sandra Krotevich, sister of Bogdan Krotevich, now commander of the Azov Brigade. Well, let's talk to Vitaly Shevchenko, who's Russia editor at BBC Monitoring, and joins me now in the studio. Vitaly, about 50 Russians involved in this prisoner swap, about 200 Ukrainians, and as we heard, members of the Azov Brigade. Is this a coup for Ukraine?
Absolutely, and it's something that's caused consternation and shock among the more extreme supporters of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine. People have actually been involved because members of the Azov regiment and foreign fighters for Ukraine who have also been released they are the people who Russians, and particularly supporters of this war, they've been told to hate. They are the embodiment of evil, the neo-Nazis that had to be denazified. That's one of the reasons why President Putin launched this operation. And now they're being released. And I've been looking at the reactions on social media, and some of the very prominent accounts and fighters are wondering what's going on. Can somebody tell us why this happened?
Have you got any ideas? Does it have anything to do with this man, Viktor Medvedchuk, do you think?
Viktor Medvedchuk is obviously a hugely important figure. He's not just close to Russia and has strong links to Russia. He's a personal friend of President Putin's. That's why his release was so important. But again, it's raised a lot of questions in these people's minds. And this prison exchange, news of it came just hours after President Putin announced what he said was a partial mobilization. Is it going to make Russians more willing to sign up and go fight in Ukraine? I really don't think so. And looking at how this is all playing out in Russian media, state TV is really, really reluctant to mention it. On social media, where discussion is more free, there's shock. I'll give you one quote. One prominent commentator said, "This is worse than a crime. It's possibly deliberate sabotage."
So just explain that about the timing. I mean, are you saying that it's deliberate, or it's just an unfortunate coincidence as far as Russia's concerned?
The honest question is, there's all sorts of theories being circulated along the lines of perhaps President Putin wanted to distract attention from his military collapse by doing this, or was it the other way around? But what it has done is enormous damage to the morale of the people who were supportive of his special military operation. And this is where one of the main threats to his rule will come. The people who are actually, they've got weapons in their arms, they're very active, they're involved in it. And I'm not sure that the protesters that we saw in Russia last night, protesters against the military mobilization, their numbers are not significant enough. We're talking about a few thousand people. They're not significant enough to pose a serious threat to President Putin. It's the discontents among the active supporters of the war who are starting to question his methods, his rationale. That's where the threat level is.
Interesting. Vitaly, thank you very much indeed. Vitaly Shevchenko, Russia editor at BBC Monitoring. And in fact, that is a story we're going to be returning to a little later. Who are trying to flee to Georgia to avoid that mobilization of reservists. That's coming up in about 20 minutes' time. You're listening to NewsHour.
It's 9:19 at WHYY. It's green across the screen to start the business day. Dow futures plus 88, Nasdaq up 7, Russell 2000 plus 4, crude oil's up $1 a barrel, gold is plus 14.90, and the S&P futures sit at 7.75 to the plus side. This is WHYY, WHYY.org, and streaming on the WHYY.
Supporting WHYY, Jefferson Health. Sometimes we overlook the most important item on our to-do list, our health. Today is the day to start prioritizing you, because those nagging aches and pains could be telling you something. Don't delay your care and listen to your body. The steps you take today are your first steps to a healthier tomorrow. You can learn more at jeffersonhealth.org/to-do. Again, that's jeffersonhealth.org/to-do.
This is Jason Menendez with Newshour live from the BBC. Well, let's stay in Ukraine for a moment because after lightning advances against Russian forces in Kharkiv province, the Ukrainian military is now trying to consolidate those recent gains, but it's proving difficult, as our senior international correspondent Orla Guerin has been finding out. She reports now from the city of Kupiansk, one of the places recently taken back from the Russians, which is still coming under attack.
We've just driven through the checkpoint at the outskirts of Kupiansk. This was an important railway hub and an administration base for the Russians. They've been driven out, but the situation here is still tense. We've been unable to enter the city for a few days because of shelling, but today we've made it through. We've been brought here by the army. We've been told that the visit will be brief. We've also been told that we need to wear our body armor and helmets. Well, there's shelling continuing now over the last few minutes. We're making our way towards a police station where we've been told the Russians detained people during their occupation. And it's soon very clear that war isn't far away. Well, we've just had to run and take cover in the building. There's been what sounded like heavy incoming fire. It's pretty clear that the Russians are continuing to target Kupiansk, even though they've been pushed out. They moved us quickly into the center of the building to get away from the windows and from any glass because of the risk of further explosions. We're with our army escort, Margot. Can you tell me what just happened outside?
Yes, a few minutes ago we heard that the Russian helicopters doing some shelling. It was nearby us, so we need to go to save your life.
Is this happening a lot in Kupiansk, a lot of attacks?
Yes, every day Kupiansk under Russian shellings and Russian artillery.
So they are still trying to take the city back?
Yes, of course. They trying to come back, but we don't allow them to do that.
We've just been told that if there's shelling, to move to shelter, to try to get close to a wall and find some cover. We're outside a building that's been completely destroyed. It was 3 stories high. We're told it was the prosecutor's office. We're hearing more shelling now. In the last few minutes, we've heard a lot of outgoing shelling. So far, nothing incoming, but the area has been shelled in recent days. The Russians are still trying to target Kupiansk. We've arrived at the residential area at the edge of the city. Lots of apartment blocks here. You can hear the sound of a generator. There's no water, no power, and people are living with the constant threat of shelling. Some here don't criticise their former occupiers. We're with one of the residents here outside a local apartment block. Could I ask you your name and your age?
Alexander Ivanovich.
My name is Alexander Ivanovich. I'm 67.
When the Russians were here, how did they treat people?
Normal.
They treated people